When I have parallel lines or two lines going in the same direction being cut by a transversal, that is any line that's going through those parallel lines, I can use angle relationships to find the measure of missing angles. So in this picture, all of these angles in red are congruent. Congruent just means the same measure. Angle 1 and angle 4, we can see that they're the same size. Those are vertical angles. So are angles 5 and 8. So, and we can also see that angle 1 and 5 are the same size. Those are called corresponding angles, right? So basically, all of these angles in red are the same size. So if I knew the measure of angle 1, well, then I know the measure of all of these angles. I know the measure of angle 4, 5, and 8. Now, when two angles aren't congruent, that usually means that they are supplementary, which means they add up to 180. And if you notice, angle 1 and angle 2, when you put them together, they make half a circle, and half a circle is 180 degrees. So angle 1 plus angle 2 will equal 180. That's called a linear pair, right? So will angle 5 and angle 7, right? And so basically, anything that isn't congruent to angle 1 is going to be supplementary to angle 1, which means that if I know the measure of one of these angles, any one of these angles, I can find the measure of the rest of them. Let's look at an example. So in this picture, they're giving us the measure of this angle here, angle C2Y, and we are supposed to be finding the measure of these other angles. All right, so noticing that this angle is 154 degrees, then that means right across from that is another 154. So angle 2 is 154. So it's because it's vertical, but we can see that they are the same measure. We can also see that 154 and angle 1 make a half circle, which means they add up to 180. So I can use subtraction to figure out the measure of that other angle. So we can say that that's 26 degrees, because 26 plus 154 gives me 180 degrees, which means that if this is 26, then this is also 26, and going down to the bottom, this angle 4 corresponds with that one, so that one's 26. And I can just start filling in the rest of these angle measures. So angle 5 is corresponding to this main angle here. So angle 5 is also going to be 154 degrees, and angle 6 is vertical to that. See our vertical angles? And so that one's also 154 degrees. But basically, we can find the measure of any angle given one of those angles. Now, it does get a little more challenging when they start throwing equations in the mix with these. So in this case, we need to solve for x. So I need to know how to set up my equation. So I'm looking at this angle and this angle, and I see that they are the same. They are congruent, which means they are equal to each other. So that means that this angle, 12x plus 3, is equal to 11x plus 9. And now I'm just going through the steps of solving an equation. So I subtract the 11x from both sides so that I can move all my variable terms on the same side. 12x minus 11x is just 1x. I'm still left with a 3 over here. And on this side, I'm just left with a 9. And then I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And that's going to give me x equals 9 minus 3, which is 6. Now, that is not the measure of the angle. That's just the value of x. If I want the measure of the angle, I will plug that in next to figure out 11 times 6 plus 9. And that'll tell me the measure of the angle. Okay. Now, in this example, so same thing. The first thing you want to do is think of the angle relationship. Now, look, this angle looks to be a lot smaller than this one. So they are not congruent angles. I also know they're not congruent because they are same side interior angles, same side of the transversal and inside, right? And looking up here at our example, these ones on the same side, inside, they add up to 180 because they are not the same measure. So in this case, the way I would set this up is I would say that this angle, the 3x plus 20, plus this angle, the 2x, equals 180 degrees. Now we're back to solving equations. Now in this one, our two x's were on opposite sides, so I had to use inverse operations to solve it. In this case, they are on the same side, so I am just going to combine my like terms. 3x plus 2x gives me 5x. Now I'm going to subtract my 120. Okay, that gives me 5x equals 180 minus 120 is 60. Divide by 5, divide by 5, and x equals 12. Again, that is the measure of x. Sometimes they're asking for the measure of x. Sometimes they're asking for the measure of the angle. So if I wanted the measure of this angle, that angle says it's 2 times x. And once we know that x equals 12, that means it's 2 times 12. So the measure of that angle is 24 degrees. And to find the measure of the other angle, I can either plug in the 12 or just subtract 24 from the 180, and that will give the measure of the other angle.